Welcome back to another Spektrumsynth tutorial. I'm Don Garbutt from New Frontiers Audio. In this episode, I'd like to explain the usage of the magic button. The magic button works with the sample and hold circuit. To give you an idea of the general purpose of the magic button, I'm going to switch to the Time Warp 2600. It has a sample and hold circuit, and usually when using the sample and hold, the timing clock of the sample and hold is also used to trigger an envelope generator. In this simple setup, I've applied the sample and hold to control the pitch of oscillator 1. You can see that that's actually hardwired here, so when this fader is up, the sample and hold messages will control the pitch of the oscillator. I've got the oscillator feeding into the filter mixer, and the filter is set to wide open here. The filter signal shows up at the amplifier, and the amplifier is controlled by this envelope generator here. The controlled amplifier volume is set with this fader, and this is what we hear. Now in this case, the envelope generator is being triggered by the keyboard, but the fact that the sample and hold process contains a built-in clocking square wave oscillator, we can use the low-frequency oscillator square wave to fire the envelope generator by flipping this switch here. So you may have noticed that this square wave firing the envelope generator was firing it at half of the speed of the sample and hold stream. That's a peculiarity of this particular instrument, but what we can do is we can replace the sample and hold clock with an external LFO coming from here, and open up the MIDI beat synchronization option hidden under this label. Activating Synchronize Internal Clock sets up the sample and hold clock for external sync, and this sets up the external LFO for external sync. And as long as we set the external LFO to double the value of the internal LFO, then we'll get the right timing arrangement between the sample and hold process and the triggering clock. So other than this complication, the sample and hold generator creates a string of random and semi-ordered control values, with each value also accompanied with a gate or trigger event that can fire envelope generators. Now let's take a look at how that's implemented in the Spektrumsynth. Go to the Initialization Patches folder, and down at the bottom you'll find a Magic Button Init patch. This sets up LFO2 as a gate or triggering device. LFO2 will be able to fire envelope generators, and it's one of the clock sources that can be chosen in the sample and hold circuit. LFO2 is usually used in clock sync mode, so your DAW has to be in play mode, and it's also set by the symmetry control to be a very short duration pulse. This magic button triggering process fires all the voices simultaneously. The init patch uses solo oscillator 1 in unison mode. This magic button process can fire both the standard envelope generators and the auxiliary envelope generator found on the B panel. To enable the firing of the auxiliary envelope, you have to select LFO2 as the input trigger source. You can activate the triggering of the main envelopes and the auxiliary envelope by pressing here. Or if you like, you can activate only the auxiliary envelope by pressing here. And should you want the main envelopes to be activated and not the auxiliary envelope, just deactivate the LFO2 control by switching to any of the other settings. In the case of our use of oscillator 1, the choice of envelope which controls it is made by this button. In this case, the assigned envelope made down in Grand Central will control the volume, or the volume can be controlled by the auxiliary envelope by this setting. You can hear that I'm accessing different envelopes by the position of this switch. I'll admit that the envelope assignment thing in Spektrumsynth is a little complicated, but it's part of the layout of the instrument to enable individual sections to be controlled by different envelope generators. I'll talk more about the voicing in a future tutorial. Different voicing settings are set up in the tutorial examples and are notated in the user's guide. The next preset is called Magic Button Uni Sample and Hold Frequency Cutoff. This is set up to use the triggering process in conjunction with the sample and hold circuit. So you'll see here the sample and hold has LFO2 as its clock source. In this patch, both LFOs 8 and 11 are set to clock to sync. In this next patch, I'm using LFO 11 in the sample and hold process. LFOs 9 to 16 are polyphonic. This LFO will be sampled in the sample and hold process. With the phase trigger set to sync, each key starts its own cycle. The arpeggiation effect is caused by different arrival times of the notes. Here I'm going to play a variety of notes where all notes are played as a chord and then played as individual notes. So that's the basic scoop on the magic button. There are several patches that use the magic button settings. They can be found in the rhythmic patches and in the sample and hold folder. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. See you on the next one.